I don't think Kingdom Come Deliverance is a bad game. What I do think, however, is it's a fucking tongue twister. The reason I'm making this video is, I guess you could say it's a form of damage control. Just hours ago, I released what I believe to be a quick summary of some of the main features in Kingdom Come Deliverance. And boy oh boy was it met with some negative views. Some people did agree with me, and I actually had some people who initially didn't agree with me at least consider some of the points I was making after discussing it with them in the comment section. But overall, the majority of the comments were things like, "Get good, scrub," and "You're a casual gamer." Or a personal favourite of mine being that my review was uninformed and I should play more than just the tutorial. But we'll get to that later. Generally, the rest of the comments were along the lines of that. I'd like to say this just as a reminder to you that my review is a subjective opinion and not an objective fact. In no way did I say that I believe Kingdom Come 2 Electric Boogaloo is inherently a bad game, which is something I'm definitely going to have to reiterate in this fucking video. All I said is that there were a lot of issues and flaws with the game which I addressed. I'd also like to state that boring is not equal to something being bad, which was mentioned to me in a comment. As I stated in my last video using Metal Gear Solid as an example, I'll do so again here. Remember Act 3 of Metal Gear Solid 4 where Snake has to sneak through Eastern Europe while trailing a member of a resistance group in the hopes of making contact with their leader Big Mama? That was fucking boring. But do I think that Metal Gear Solid 4 is a bad game because I found segments of it boring? No, not at all. What a lot of people seem to misunderstand with my last video is that I only played 2.5 to 3 hours of the game. Let me rephrase this by saying that my game crashed around the 2 to 3 hour mark. I rebooted the game, continued playing, and just didn't record it. I just want to let that be known so people aren't still assuming that I just filmed the beginning moments. I'm going to be using some of the footage from my last video, so without further ado, here is a more in-depth look at Kingdom Come Delivery Man. Right, to make sure this starts off smoothly, I'm going to start off with what I think is good about the game. The graphics are absolutely stunning. It's quite possibly one of the most beautiful game worlds I've ever seen on screen, and the fact that everything has been historically recreated by the game devs is something that shows that this is a project that they truly and deeply care about. The cutscenes are also something that's utterly fantastic about the game from a visual perspective. While I stated that I believe there's the issue of having more cinematic cutscenes than actual game in the game, that isn't to say I don't think they're visually pleasing, and it's obvious that the amount of work that has gone into the cinematics, it's like watching a film. The visual quality of the game is absolutely jaw-dropping, there's no denying it. I also like the story. While I said I did think it was a cliché tale of revenge, that doesn't mean I don't think it's not good. I do. And the story, combined with some brilliant voice acting, makes for a very engaging experience. Which brings me to my next point. The voice acting is done well. Despite the fact that there's a peculiar mismatch of English and American accents in the medieval kingdom of Bohemia, the majority of the accents deliver their lines superbly. But here's where we talk about the bad shit from the last video. While the cutscene animation has the quality of a Hollywood movie, the in-game animations can come across as stiff and sometimes even awkward. In my last video, the main point I brought up was how the facial animation and lip syncing was absolutely terrible. What the fuck happened there? It's Mass Effect Andromeda levels of mediocre. Now you can say that Mass Effect Andromeda had a budget of $100 million, but King Ding Ring Sting had a fucking budget of $5 million. That level of quality should be better than what was delivered. The second point that I need to reiterate is the combat system. Now a lot of people jump down my throat about this by telling me it's based off real medieval sword tactics, etc, etc. That doesn't change the fact that it's clunky as fuck. Words like clunky, janky, laggy, and sluggish are bad fucking adjectives. Now, that's what the combat system is. While it does become something to get used to, it doesn't change the fact that it's a delayed combat system that feels awkward and uncomfortable. Also, the lock-picking minigame can fuck off. I don't know who designed it, but they're fucking evil. It's borderline impossible to do on a controller, so fuck you to anyone who's playing on a console. I think, in all honesty, my biggest problem with the game so far is the ridiculous amounts of load time it takes for even the most basic actions. As I stated last video, merely talking to an NPC triggers a loading screen which can take upwards of 10, even 20 seconds to load, which in the general speaking of things is a bit of a joke. Even something as simple as turning off the motion blur settings in the options took roughly 10 minutes to load from a black screen, or eating from a cooking pot which took 2 to 3 minutes featuring a dark void of nothingness. As I said before, even the loading screens have loading screens. One comment that was mentioned to me quite a lot was how I barely touched the surface of the game as the tutorial is 7 hours long. Now, am I the only person who sees a bit of an issue with that? Imagine it's 2008 and you've just seen the action-packed trailer for Fallout 3. When you buy the game, instead of the tutorial leading up to the vault escape taking 1 hour, it took 7 hours, and you had to spend the entire time growing up in the vault as the lone wanderer before you even managed to step foot into the capital wasteland. You'd be pissed off. Even games like Grand Theft Auto 5, which have an absurd amount of mechanics which are still being taught to the player, even halfway through the game, but the difference there is that there's a large amount of gameplay that's taken place prior to teaching the new mechanics, aside from some fucking fetch quests and mechanics that the player is expected to know. What I mean by that is there's one stage after arriving at one of the settlements where your mission is to steal a guard's uniform from a locked chest and don the disguise to escape. It's great in the sense of immersion because you can go any number of ways about it, such as killing another guard and taking his gear instead if you're so inclined to do so. The problem here is, though, is the fact that the game hasn't taught you how to lockpick yet. In fact, if you type how to lockpick on YouTube, the first autofill suggestion is how to lockpick in Kingdom Come, because people have no fucking idea how the mechanic is supposed to work. The final point I want to make is that I'm not a huge fan of the save system. I get it's an interesting take on saving your game, much like the ink ribbon style from Resident Evil, but the autosaves are few and far between, and the only way to manually save your game is by drinking saviour schnapps. They're really fucking expensive. I get that this promotes the idea of item management to the player, but when the game glitches, as often as it does, you can be flung from an almost vertical surface while jumping and then plummet to your death as a result. While that does make for some funny footage, it isn't funny to lose an hour of gameplay time because of the fact there's a save system which does have a few flaws. Anyway, I'm going to leave it there. I want to state one final time that I don't hate Kingdom Come Deliverance, nor do I think it's a bad game. The game has a number of flaws which were either overlooked or ignored, but I'm under the impression that the devs have actually taken note of at least some of these issues, and they've publicly stated that they're actively working on fixing them. And for that, I give them a massive thumbs up. I understand that fans of the game probably won't like what I'm saying, as was shown in the last video, but hopefully me releasing this video will provide a bit more depth and give you some more understanding to my opinion on the flaws of this game. If you enjoyed the video, please consider leaving a like and subscribing, and once again, thank you so much for watching.